Welcome back to the Break Room. I'm Brandon Barrick, and today we're talking about Blue Beetle. And it's not just me, folks. I got other people here at the table today. All the way down at the other end, we got Evan Yee.
Whoa.
Next to Evan, we got Coy Jandreau.
Hello.
And Jordan Morris.
I'm also here.
Oh, folks, we are definitely gonna spoil this movie. So stay as long as you love being spoiled and won't get angry at us. We're gonna be reviewing this movie by giving it a score of 1 to 5 in 5 different categories. And at the end, we'll arrive at one single number that'll hopefully be at least double digits. The categories that we will be reviewing this movie are the script, which includes story and writing, the visuals, the acting, the directing, and the sound/score and music. And before we get into all this, let's talk about the strike. Have you guys heard that there is a strike going on in the entertainment industry? SAG and the WGA are on strike, but SAG-AFTRA has informed us that entertainment journalists like us are allowed to cover movies and TV and entertainment and news during the strike, and that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to give our honest opinions and reviews of the movie. Warner Brothers has not paid us to talk about this movie, and we won't take their filthy money. We support SAG and the WGA and their strikes. We want to make sure everyone gets what they deserve out of this. And our goal in our coverage is to celebrate the artistry, to really talk about how AI couldn't make this movie. You couldn't have AI making a movie about
AI doesn't have
superhero
family.
bug. That's right. Yeah. No family for AI.
Sure.
The computer's on its own, sad, ones and zeros, crying into the nothingness.
Digital abyss.
Thank you, Coy. See? I need a human being to help finish my sentences.
There it is.
Thank you. So let's hop into this bad boy, okay? Let's talk about the first category, which is going to be the script, the story, and the writing. The screenplay for this film was done by Gareth Dunnett Alcocer. Let's talk about the writing of this movie, which something folks might not remember. This was originally going to be a streaming-only movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got bumped up to the theaters, which I think is a great call. Stop making streaming-only movies. Every movie should go through a movie theater.
I mean, the strike's part of that too. I think,
Right,
I think,
right.
if you want to make a profit, you want to eat, you probably go to the theater.
Well, let's talk about the story for this movie. Anyone want to jump in? Their first thoughts on it? This is I think it's a pretty boilerplate origin story film.
Yeah, I think a lot of people say there's only like a certain amount of stories ever, right? Like there's
3.
There's 3 stories, sure, yeah. And origin stories, I think now, especially as superhero movies dominate the media landscape more and more, we're gonna see more origin stories, so it's gonna be harder for them to stand out. But when I was watching the movie, I really felt like if I'd seen it when I was a kid, if I hadn't been as exposed to other origin stories, I really, really would have liked this. And I still do like it a lot. Just to say that.
Is it still anticipated?
I do. Who knows?
I do like the movie a lot. But I think as a kid, I would have really liked it. Because, the line from the trailer that we all have been saying a lot is like, the family gives them strength. And that's
the family is my strength.
It's something we hear in Fast and Furious, obviously, and also many other movies. But I do think it was... I think it was like a really fun origin story for sure, and a lot of it worked for me. Yeah.
I think that rating the writing is tricky because you're given an impossible task of doing an origin story in 2023 when we've seen roughly 87 of them. And you're also given a task where you've got an ensemble cast that can't be shortchanged because that's the strength of the movie. That's what gives them strength. So you not only need to care about all the characters, but you also need to tell the origin story in a way that feels even a little bit new and exciting. And I think this walked that line between, okay, I know where this is going. I know what Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 is going to be because it had to be. Yeah. But at the same time, I still had moments of like the rush of adrenaline, the emotion, and that to me is good writing when you can overcome the trickiness of we have to get this from A to B and everyone knows where it's going to land at C. So I was really impressed, and I really think that the acting is what allowed the writing to sing. So when we get to acting, that might be a slightly higher score because I do think that allowed it to elevate beyond just an origin movie.
Sure. They don't just put the script on the screen and have you read it.
AI read it.
You need actors bringing it to life. I mean, you both hit on a great point, right? Origin stories That's a pretty common language for the modern moviegoer.
Yeah,
right?
what are the three stories? It's like man versus self, man versus nature, and dog learns to play basketball.
Yes.
Correct.
There's no rule that says the dog can't play basketball.
And there still isn't after 11 of them.
Throughout time, people have been telling the stories of the rule book
Well,
paintings.
the rule book
Air
with
bud
no
of
rule.
yore.
I mean,
Right, yes.
that's the first thing humans did. They pulled a wolf out of its
Right.
normal
Taught to play
genetic evolution.
Well, they
and
wrote a
bonded
rule
to-
book, and they didn't include anything about the wolf playing
Why do you think
basketball.
Egyptians included so many cats? They were building up the opposing
Yes,
team.
yes,
It goes
yes.
back to the beginning.
Yes.
You need the cats versus dog war that came about in 2001? Cats versus dogs.
Cats versus dogs.
You thought this
That's
was
what we
going
went
to
to.
be a pop culture show. It's a history lesson, people.
Yeah.
So yes, Blue Beetle. Yeah, I think
Most
that,
credits to them teaching the dog to play basketball. Sorry to spoil it. Wasn't-
the dog's not even in the movie.
No, it just comes in to assemble the Justice League.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I think that there's highs and lows in this movie, and the highs are great. I thought it was really cool that it's a movie with like stuff on its mind. Like it is about gentrification, it is about having too much college debt. Like it feels like a really
They hit that real heavy in the beginning.
Yeah, I know.
It's like the first line of the movie.
Right, exactly. I'm going into a gig economy with all this college debt. But like, I do like that about it. I do like that they're like trying to put more modern stuff into this. I think as we've all said, a story that we've all kind of seen a bunch of times before. So I liked the themes. I think the family stuff is really sweet. Again, we goof, Fast and Furious, family stuff, but I think that it all really works well. There's some really sweet moments between the family members. I was hot and cold on some of the humor. Some of the humor is a little sitcom-y, which might be kind of by design because it's a family story, so maybe it's supposed to kind of remind you of a family sitcom. Some of it was good, some of it I liked less, but I thought the good stuff was really, really good.
Yeah, because if you think about it, a lot of popular heroes, they don't have family, right? Batman famously doesn't have much family. Iron Man, he
if
doesn't
you
have
spent
much
5
family.
minutes with Batman, we get it.
Iron Man doesn't have much family. Even Peter Parker has lost most of his family. He's with like a surrogate, one parental figure. Even Superman, he's just got Ma and Pa Kent. That's it. It's not like a huge sprawling family, and they're like isolated on their farm.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see, this guy has a lot to worry about. And I thought it was pretty heavy. I did not see the dad dying.
Yeah.
Even though they teased at the beginning with he had a heart attack, we didn't tell you about, which is probably the realest thing about this movie.
Yeah.
Is your parents having a major medical event and no one telling you about
And
it.
6 months of life covering all of that. You're
Yeah.
like, that can all happen. And
Yeah,
cascading failures, which I was like, whoa, this is heavy from
Our
the top.
parents' generation, they don't talk about emotions like
Yeah.
we do.
I wish they dug into that though a little bit more, right? Because the scene where the dad is having the heart attack, the sister is crying, and Jaime is all wrapped up. He's been grabbed
Right.
by the villain, and he's watching his dad die. And that's heartbreaking.
It is.
Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
That
And he-
stuff works so hard.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
And then meeting his father on the ancestral plane, for lack of a better term, not to use an MCU parlance, and being no, and he's like, what happened? You saw, I'm dead. This is why we're talking right now. We're both kind of dead right now.
Yeah, and then saying I know my part of the universe because that's part of the movie. They talk about what's everyone's role in life and stuff like that. My role in life is to get you here. It's a very important thing I think for parents of immigrants or parents who are immigrants for the children to really give their children a better life. And it's kind of an analogy for that in some way.
Echoing the Barbie movie in a little bit.
Yeah.
You come to a place and then you see it keep going. That idea of a parent brings a child so far and then lets them go beyond.
I thought another pro for me in the writing was each and every character I mentioned earlier, the ensemble not being underwritten, but I liked each of their arcs kind of being a continuation of how you meet them. You meet them in a certain way where there's an element of immaturity, for lack of a better term, but something that needs to grow from them. Each of them needs to do a thing, and by the end we see each of them achieve that thing that they need to do. And I thought it was handled really well to have so many moving parts. And also, as a spoiler, we're doing spoilers. I love that
We've mentioned
some dad die. But another really solid writing element for me was they
In case you weren't paying attention, the dad dies.
Is that we introduced some ideas of a greater universe without doing it heavy-handedly and without making it. I never once wanted to go to Batman. I never once wanted to go to Flash. I never once wanted to be like, okay, let's leave this world behind and go over there. And it never felt like there was a catastrophe to be like, why isn't the Justice League here? So when you have all these origin movies, the hardest part for me is suspending disbelief enough to be like, why isn't somebody coming to save? Like,
Superman's not gonna show up for this.
They mentioned, those characters, whereas I now feel like James Gunn has said very clearly, this is the first DCU character. Yeah. And the first movie is Superman. I'm excited to see him fold in because I feel like they've set the groundwork much like Iron Man did, where they just planted seeds, but it didn't have to land. And I think they did that really well.
There was no big light shooting into the sky, meaning the Earth was gonna be destroyed. Like, thank goodness.
And no gray minions.
And they kind of
no
first act, no gray minions. I enjoyed that.
No just mass casualty, like bad guys where you can just kill them. I mean, there were quite a few soldiers killed who I'm sure had families and were maybe just trying to get a paycheck.
No, they were all troubled loners. If you go on the Blue Beetle website, there's a bio for every soldier, and they were all troubled loners.
Hey, this guy my uncle stabbed with the Beetle machine. He deserved it.
Yeah, that was brutal.
The dude getting stabbed.
Then it was a little dissonance there because they do make such a big deal in the movie about Jaime convincing,
don't kill anyone.
Convincing the scarab not to kill, and then that Blue Beetle machine just impales dudes. So a very cool scene, but maybe went against the heroes don't kill.
Ted did not have that rule.
That's true.
So frankly,
you're right.
We're seeing some dark to me.
Maybe that dude just loved to impale. Ted, that guy impaled all day long.
That's kind of thing. Retired early, ready for murder charges.
Put on some Motley Crue and just started stabbing dudes.
Was the uncle right? Is Batman a fascist?
I love that fit the character so well. I know people lost their minds in the trailer, but it's always been a commentary on whether Batman's doing the right thing. Like, he's got billions, and instead of donating, he's like, I'm gonna punch the mentally ill.
Sure.
So I think that it's definitely a good commentary, and I think that character would feel that way about
that. Yeah, I know. Really funny. Like, of course, this is the DC's version of a conspiracy nut. Obviously they would have feelings about Batman and Superman. I wonder, maybe that is a clue as to which Batman this universe has. It seems like Battinson may be a little more of a fascist than Batfleck.
Yeah.
Oh, I think Batfleck's definitely retired at this point. Batfleck is. I honestly think this is going to be, if it's a Jensen Ackles, if it's a whomever's next. I think the Batman in reference is going to be our new greater universe, and it's going to be interesting to see because I think they're going to be an older Batman by 3 or 4 years, not way older than Corn Sweat, but someone that's old enough to have a family.
Well, he has Damian, right?
Yeah, because he has Damian, and he's already had Nightwing. He's already raised a ward.
He's gone through a few.
He's had
wards at this
I've had a ward or two in my day.
Oh, you want to talk about getting stabbed through the machine? I've seen it happen in my ward.
But I think that we're going to see a Batman that's already been around long enough that he might have even known the original Blue Beetle. And that's something I want to talk about this post-credit scene.
I did hear the director say that there's a shot in the Blue Beetle cave where you can see a stack of Oreos, favorite snack of Martian Manhunter. So I think the implication is that other Justice League characters have been in that cave and worked with him.
Nicely done, someone. Call, thank you.
All right, so 2 things I want to hit on with some of the themes you mentioned before we move on to the next category. First of all, Palmyra City, where the movie takes place. We've seen it's kind of like an analogy for gentrification and just it's got elements of El Paso, Texas. It's also got Silicon Valley, San Francisco vibes, almost in a little bit just tech and where people fit in here. And I just want to shout out, or not shout out, but one to mention that for me, before I started doing stuff here, I kind of covered space news and stuff that was happening in the aerospace industry. And one of the things that I found out was where Elon Musk has his Starbase set up in Texas is very similar to what's going on in Palmyra City, where it is Brownsville is the 26th largest Hispanic population in the U.S. Very high concentration, and also everyone's getting priced out and moved out because they're just building more and more spaceships, and it's pretty sad. It's there's a lot of people between Brownsville and Boca Chica Beach that are just they've had homes there and they've had to sell them, or they'll be cooking dinner and their windows will get blasted because
they're testing shuttles.
So I was talking about Barbie and the idea of these larger themes at play within a mainstream movie. It's not something the movie really hits on in a way that pays off at the end or pays off in a meaningful way. But it's interesting to have these things referenced in like mainstream film as for people to think about and and consider when they're watching.
And it's like it does feel like that is kind of an answer to like, why isn't the Justice League here, right?
Yeah,
it's the thing we were all asking during Secret Invasion. Why aren't the Avengers here?
Yeah, and
it does have that theme of like this part of town gets ignored, and like maybe it even gets ignored by Superman. Like, and that's a cool theme, and I think it's neat that the movie like is thinking about that.
Yeah, definitely. And then the last thing, the stakes not being like a world-ending thing, I think that works better. Like to me, this felt like the Bumblebee of the DC film, where Bumblebee, they're not trying to save Earth, they're just trying to be like, oh, we just got to stop them from contacting the Decepticons or whatever that larger implication is. But yeah, I think in that way, these origin stories in smaller films work that way when it's like the Earth isn't at stake.
Yeah. I mean, there's an implied like, oh, there's gonna be too many of these Omacs walking around. Yeah. But it never gets to that level of like, someone else should be here dealing with this.
No one opens a portal.
Yeah, there's no portal.
Zero portal.
Like
movie.
I said, no beams of light to the sky.
Right, yeah.
We're doing okay. Speaking of, so the movie takes place in Palmyra City. We were talking about this a little bit, which is a fictional, obviously, city, but even like new to the DC. It was created for this movie, but they put it in the comics in like 6 months ago, or maybe a little bit more than that. Now, Jaime Reyes originally is in El Paso in the comics. Then they did a run where he's in Palmyra City, but it's supposed to be in Texas.
Yeah.
Do you think in this movie it's in Texas? I never heard anyone say Texas or Florida. But it feels, I mean, to me, it feels very Miami.
Yes.
Are there keys in Texas?
That was my next question. Because, like, there are, like,
also,
Brownsville,
technically,
like
what is a key?
That's my next question.
I don't know that either.
I assumed it was an outlet of land.
It's a barrier island.
I know that they come up in Jimmy Buffett songs. I don't know what they are.
I've only heard them. I never looked.
I think if I remember my archipelagos correctly, a key is like it's a barrier island, which means it's very small and it's mostly just sand. It's supposed to get washed away during a hurricane coming soon. And it's like it's
my most anticipated weather event.
It's closer to like a larger body of land. I don't know.
I think that's what Boca Chica Beach is, kind of. Yeah, like it is a national wildlife preserve, which is another reason like Starbase is like screwing everything up there because it's killing a ton of birds every time they launch a spaceship. So I think that's kind of it. I don't know.
And the director said there are elements of like El Paso in the skyline of Palmyra City in this movie. So I don't know. And like the Reyes family's house is on El Paso Street, which is like a nod to it. But I don't think they ever explicitly said that this is in Texas or this is in Florida, which is also a little infuriating. It's like, just let us know where this is, please.
We do need to move on to fjord talk, but but I do think that there is something cool about it having aspects of all these places.
Yeah,
because
I did love the look of this city.
It does seem to be like this could be anywhere where more working class people are being priced out and kind of shit on.
Well,
so,
and Marvel's always been that everyone could visit New York and like maybe see an Avenger feeling, whereas DC's always been to me like Metropolis isn't real, Gotham isn't real, they're commentaries on cities. Right. So I'm okay with this one being a fictional city that's a commentary, which I think suits the DC universe as it grows. I honestly, the visuals, which are our next segment, I want to get into how I think this does lay the groundwork for what is going to be right about the DCU, because I do think they did a lot of good ground laying with that city element.
Well, let's get that spot. Yeah, let's start with our scores. Again, 1 to 5. You can give a half point on it if you feel so inclined. On the writing in this film, I will give this one a 3.5. Good origin story, fun stuff, subverted my expectations every now and then. And it felt like nice. It felt different, and there was a lot of culture like built into the story.
I basically feel the exact same way. 3.5. Didn't feel like I was hit over the head with like too many things when it comes to like representation or whatever. And I feel like the emotional parts really, really worked for me. So, and then 3.5. Yeah.
Cool. 3.5 for me too. I do feel like it is able to achieve the origin story well. It definitely had to color by numbers a bit, which is not its fault, but I was aware of it. But it was able to add things that elevated it beyond like an average. So just above average, 3.5 for me.
I'll go a little higher. I'll say 4. I'll knock off a point for some comedy that didn't work for me. But love the big themes. Love the kind of like current mindset that it's working with. Yeah, it's 4 for me.
Okay, beautiful. Our next category will be the visuals. Let's talk about the visuals of the film. It was shot by Paul Porgaleski. Went for it? Huh?
Pavel.
Pavel? Oh, I'm sorry.
I think there was a
Excuse me.
script.
Oh,
miscopy.
gee, not my fault. Pavel Porgaleski, frequent Ari Aster collaborator who shot Midsommar and Hereditary. Very different movie from those movies. I would have loved
Although some, maybe some connections.
I would have loved an insane Midsommar moment in the middle of this movie, just out of nowhere, like in that secret base, just
But-
like a.
It wasn't the. I
It's a
will
body
argue,
horror. I love a little body horror.
I'll argue that transformation
Pretty body
is
horror.
like.
Yeah.
I know.
The liquid black coming out of the mouth was like, that's intense.
That's
where
like
it's
the best section of the movie.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
And
it.
then I don't know if you noticed. Oh, and for context, we're talking about when the Scarab takes over Jaime, and also when the Scarab's code is downloaded into the Olmec, right? That's what we call it, and takes over Mr. Carapax or
Mr. Carapax.
I don't know why.
Carapax was my father.
Where it takes over Carapax.
I'm the Invisible Man. Mr. Carapax is my father.
I don't know why I called him that. That was wild.
I think it's Lieutenant Carapax.
But did you guys see like his
Mr.
skin?
Superman, Mr. Batman.
Did you see his skin getting pulled in that? Like when it's like looking down, like his that was nuts for like you said, a PG-13
Yeah,
film.
it went hard for PG-13,
Yeah.
and I also think the visuals. So for me, the visuals are a highlight. So it's gonna be a high number. Spoiler alert for everybody. But I think the practical suit should be taught in schools. Practical suits. This suit is currently up in Burbank. If you guys live in Southern California, the suit is stunning. And
Great islands in Burbank.
the islands of Burbank.
Islands. Give yourself a burger. Give yourself a big
But
wave
not the
burger.
Keys. There's a hurricane coming.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I do think there's also an element of Xolo's a martial artist, and I loved seeing physical action again. I really had missed the weight of people fighting and it being someone in a suit that is real. Like I get we had to go CGI with so many movies, but feeling grounded again, feeling like this was a tangible suit because it is, and the fights having to go accordingly was really nice. I loved the in-helmet view. I really felt like the Guyver with the suit, and I love the Guyver. And I also really think that my only negative was the character design for the final evolution of Carapax was a bit heavy-handed, but literally 7/8 of the film, I was like, that's a cool visual nod, that's a cool element.
Yeah.
I loved LexCorp's new logo. I love that they gave, like, when you go to a city, there are buildings that represent other cities. Like, there's not just one Bank of America building. So I love that we got a LexCorp building to plant those seeds, and it wasn't like heavy-handed. They didn't like zoom into it. So I love that we're planting seeds in a visual way that didn't feel like it took away from Blue Beetle, but it also felt like a neo-futuristic, but not too far in the future. I don't know. The visuals really worked for me. I really dug it.
I like that a lot of the action scenes, like you said, with the martial artists, like the fighting felt like all very consistently shot and done in a way where it wasn't like trying to elevate it in unnecessary ways, and it felt it was cool. All the extreme wide angle lenses, like it really leans into that, like all the swinging and stuff like that. It's really fun.
And then once it does go CGI, which all these movies kind of
Third
have to
act
by the
CGI,
end,
yeah.
it does look really cool. There's a lot of kind of like, it feels like maybe kind of like anime moves people are doing. There's a lot of energy beams. There's a lot of energy waves. Love beams.
Final Fantasy sword.
I know why they
sword.
put that in the trailer, but I was like, if that's like your big
save
MacGuffin
it.
sword, I was like, save that one. That would have been like really badass. I loved a lot of like the flying around was fun in the beginning. Some fun shots there. Some infrastructure damage to the bridge when the test flight. It's like, come on, this is dangerous for everyone who's bridge every day. Is he gonna tell anyone about this?
A lot of budget to that scene.
a little
Unless
problem.
not cheap.
I loved like the color, the neon colors. I mean, they've really hit it in the advertising and like the poster design of this movie. But it does look like really fresh and like very different, not like overly dark, which a lot of these superhero movies can feel sometimes. Like that was a very fun element. I would like to see more fun with the suit, maybe. I don't know. Like,
Movie looked
make some
expensive,
crazy
which I liked.
weapons.
A lot of times movies look cheap and like.
When I was thinking like, oh, they were gonna put this on streaming, I was like, they put a lot into this for just a streaming movie.
And I think
that was their plan.
I think the budget was pretty low compared to some of the other movies we've seen this summer. And I think they really worked with it. And and I think those like practical fights went a long way. And, putting some of the money into the suit went a long way.
It was half the cost, I think, of the other family movie this summer. And I loved that family movie, but that was $370 million movie.
Right,
And this
sure.
looked a little bit more expensive.
And I liked, like Ted Kord's like bass.
Yeah.
And the 80s, 90s look of his
What
tech
suit's he
and
wearing?
stuff.
I love that the third suit's missing and it had a little pillow on his belly. Like, I'm really
I
curious
do
what
want to
suit
talk.
he's in.
I want to talk about that moment too.
Yeah.
But like even when she's using the tech later and his weird like multicolored Gatling gun, like what?
Yeah,
So
right.
silly, but like in a fun way, and
Yeah.
it was very different. It didn't feel like just kind of generic tech. I mean, the villain is the same as the hero. Is overdone, and we get it. I mean, Iron Man 1 did the same thing, right? Where
Yeah.
it's just like
a lot of
bigger
comic
mix.
books use that trope. It's
Yeah.
just the ones that do it success. It goes from being like a comic to being like Hamlet. Like
Right,
the
yeah.
Shakespearean element was missing, I felt.
It is so fun, like the Flash fights, the Reverse Flash.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
that's the laziest version
so
of that.
lazy.
It's like what?
The moment that what was his actual name, Dela Cruz, gets killed, like getting Jaime out of there, and then gets
Oh,
like
the scientist.
stabbed.
Yeah.
I'll just call him Guillermo because like that's how we all know him. That was like brutal too.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a very horror movie moment of like the blood just like splattering on
You
the
felt
door
for
and
him
stuff.
too, and those
Yeah.
limited screen
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
That's what I meant by the writing. Like a lot of people got limited screen time and worked.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they packed it in there.
we
Yeah,
get
like
scores?
visually a lot of fun. Yeah, I like the beetle design. And yeah, I love a good body horror moment, and there was a
Yeah.
lot of it in this movie. And implied entry through anus for this character.
Yes, which
It
I don't
didn't
think they
crawl.
ever say definitively
Yeah.
whether or not this.
How did it get in there, dude?
To the
How
butt.
did it get in
Definitely
there?
implied.
How did it get in there? Evan, let's start with you for your visuals of this film.
I like
What do you
visuals.
think of
I'll give it a 4. Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. I love the suit. Like I said, if I was a kid, I would have like
Oh,
been
yeah.
so in. Like I'd like,
Yeah.
give me a suit that can make anything I want, and all the weapons. See, like I know the character from Young Justice, so seeing all the weapons from animation to live screen or live action, I was like, let's go. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The suit is immaculate, and I want studios to learn lessons to make tangible suits. I thought the choreography was great, a visual element. I thought the Easter eggs were not heavy-handed, but still like exciting for fans. And I love a good visual dick joke, and it has one of the best boner jokes I've seen in years. So 4.5 from me.
What's the boner joke?
When he's about to kiss her, and then he stands against to like tuck his.
Oh.
And I was like, come on.
I thought I missed the
Boner
moment where the suit got a boner.
Oh no! Xolo got a well-deserved. There was a moment.
Making room for erection.
There was even a line about it going to his midsection. I mean,
Yeah,
come on,
yeah.
this movie had 2 good dick jokes.
I did appreciate that. Like he constantly has to deal with the fact that his clothes are destroyed. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. That's something that they just wash over in the
Right.
Hulk constantly in the MCU, except for like one time in Avengers when he's like when he comes back.
References
Oh, yeah, when
the
he
purple
falls
paint.
up.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, and the guy gives him pants or whatever. But it's like, yeah, the fact that every time the suit activated, he's like naked. That's great. I appreciate it. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll do 4 for me too. Love the neon colors. Love the practical fighting. It's a big 4.
Yeah, I'll stick with the 4s. Again, yeah, I think they got a little inventive. Love the look of Palmyra City. Yeah, I love the suit. All that great stuff. Beautiful. Neon. Get more neon in our lives, folks. Real quick, we want to thank our fans at Gourd. Have you heard of Gourd? Gourd is a video game. It was created by a team that includes former Frostpunk and Witcher 3 developers. It's a single-player dark fantasy strategy game where to survive, you must build, but to prevail, you must conquer the darkness beyond the gates. Don't we all, folks? You lead these people called the Tribe of the Dawn as they venture deep into the Forbidden Lands. You complete life-threatening quests in this dark fantasy world while managing a populace whose personal stories and well-being can decide the fate of your tribe. Gourd is available now on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S. To get a copy for yourself, click the link in the description below. Check out Gourd, based on Slavic folklore. Looks scary. I don't like scary games, but I'll give it a shot. Okay, next up in our categories, the acting. The key to the visual cinema storytelling. How do we feel about the acting in this film? I would say lots of new faces for a lot of people, unless you're a fan of like telenovelas.
And Cobra Kai.
And
right?
Cobra Kai.
Man, I love Xolo. Xolo, also, I do a lot of cons, and Xolo is one of the kindest and best people. He cares
Yeah.
so much, and he's so kind, and like, I just love the dude, so I was really excited to see him he's a full-on superhero.
Yeah.
So like, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy, and he is Jaime. Like, I just love to see him like self-actualize. Acting was great.
Xolo Mardueña plays Jaime Riaz in this film. Yeah, really charming and like fun, and you feel for him. And
a
like,
movie star.
I think handled his comedy very well. like right from the jump, he has to like carry a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
Of the story that gets thrown on him. Bruna Marquezine is Jenny Cord. Damien Alcazar is Jaime's dad. Belissa Escobedo is Jaime's sister. Susan Sarandon, Victoria Cord, and George Lopez is Crazy Uncle. I want to shout out Susan Sarandon here. Great stuff as like a villain.
Having a lot of fun.
Like really chewing that scenery as a villain. And I appreciated her like very villainous take on this. I think there was a trend for a while of like the you feel for your villains or you empathize with your villains a little bit. Yeah. And this reminds me of like High Evolutionary, where it's like, no, I create child soldiers and I'm a problem. I'm a problem.
I know we're talking about the acting, but that moment, speaking of empathizing with the villain, where they go into Mr. Carpax's mind.
I was going to say the same thing.
I thought that was beautifully done. Yeah. And I guess some of the... What people maybe they've seen the movie if they've seen this. While thinking of killing the villain, he gets all of his memories and sees his tragic past as a child soldier. I guess intercut with like actual footage of stuff that was messed up in South America. So anyway, a really cool comic book movie moment that I don't think we've seen a lot of. Yeah. Anyway, it was great. Yes, but we're talking about the acting.
No, but I think he does, he has to convey all that and his turn without a lot of dialogue.
Right, sure.
And Susan Sarandon, Victoria's still trying to like charm him and be like, baby, Carpax, you look beautiful. I think you're hot. Let's do this together.
I think the acting needed to be that good there because we usually have the problem of like, we have one villain, then they die. Like, especially like in the superhero genre, there's not a lot of like long game building. We're working on that. But I think the deaths here felt earned. In that it felt so broken, and once he realized he had like pure vengeance, and I felt like he decided he couldn't go on, and I felt that in his acting, and that was like a really strong moment because of those flashes. And comics are inherently political, and I'm glad we're not pretending they're not anymore. Like I really like that they showed something real, and they made you feel an impactful thing that should be spread to the masses. More people need to know about these things happening, and without the acting, it would have been like, what's happening? What's going on? And like it really worked for me.
Yeah, and I think overall, all of those really emotional moments, like they sell it really well. It's hard to like hit those, dramatic points in a superhero movie. I think generally, especially one where the character, it's not, Endgame. I cry every time I watch Endgame, but it's like years and years of storytelling as opposed to this is just like all new characters, and just to like have all those moments hit in such strong ways. I think they did a really good job. Yeah.
I thought Belissa was great. I thought she was kind of the standout.
Yeah, Jaime's sister, she has a lot to do.
Sure, she has to do a lot of comedy, but then she has to do some, oh my God, my parents are maybe dead acting, and I thought she did great at both. And this is a movie that like has a lot of tones. Like there is some big comedy, there is some big drama, and I thought of the cast, I thought she like threaded that needle the best. She's terrific in this.
Yeah, definitely. We were saying earlier that I really think she's gonna be like huge, especially paired with either the right comedic material or right like dramedy. I think she's gonna have a really great career.
Does she have a future in the DCU as projection
puncher?
Oh yeah, shield punch.
She keeps the
Just call her the Power Glove.
That's the Power Glove.
Right there.
That's a very funny little detail. Is that Ted Cord retrofitted a lot of old Nintendo stuff. I think he has a Game Boy tracker at some point with the Game Boy camera on it.
Yeah. That's how that looks so familiar.
Yeah, very very fun little detail.
Yeah,
he's like he's a tech genius, but also stealing tech.
Also clearly a nerd, which he would be. Blue Beetle, which I enjoyed. What else is he gonna use? I also think that George Lopez guy's going places. He was great.
I mean, whenever you think about George Lopez, I enjoyed him a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
He brought a lot of good comedy to the movie. Maybe a little sick comedy, but what a fun character.
Where he's trained. It's where he learned the skills of his craft.
Right.
World.
And I thought Nana really stood out too. She was great. The reveal that she was like a guerrilla fighter.
Yeah.
The daughter had a really hard turn where she had to be, a daughter that was missing her dad, but didn't feel like she wasn't learned enough to be ignorant to what everything was, but also would have been trapped in her youth of not being able to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Like she couldn't have done anything about the company, but she also was actively trying to do everything she could, but it never felt like she was weak or overpowered. Like, it's a really hard line to walk and be like, why is she here? Why isn't she here? Why is she not doing this? Why? And like, that was all through her in the writing. So I was really impressed with her debut. I hadn't seen her in anything before.
Yeah, she's I believe a star in like telenovelas
in Brazil. Yeah.
I shouldn't say debut. My debut to her. She was great.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's definitely one, if not her first English language.
Yeah, I think I think I remember reading that, and that's really a big shame of these producers and studios for pushing us to this point of a strike. Where like the folks in this film didn't get to promote this film, didn't get it to be out there, didn't get to be at Comic-Con. Like, it's a real shame because they all deserve their laurels here, and they did a great job. And it sucks they don't get to enjoy it and promote it and talk about it. So let's end the strike, folks. But yeah,
Bob Iger, if you're watching, come on.
At Breakroom NR in the chat, Bob. Let's get this thing settled.
Come on the show, we'll talk about it.
Sit right here. We'll figure it out.
Let's go.
We got some terms.
Let's go. I did also like the reveal that Victoria Cord like built the company with her father and then just got passed over. Like, she's not fully. She has her reasons for being so angry and wanting to kill everyone, I guess. I don't know. That's fair. Anyone else want to chime in on the actor? You want to give our scores on the acting in this film?
Let's do scores.
You want to do some scores? You want to go first this time, Evan?
Yeah, I think a 4.
Okay. Yeah, he thinks a 4.
I'm going 4.
Yeah.
You like 4s?
I like 4.
4s for you guys. Jordan?
It's a 4-y kind of day.
Oh!
Call us the terrific 4.
All right, well, I'll be a terrific 4. I'll give it a 4 as well. Yeah, I think a lot of fun choices made. Comedy when you needed it. A little heaviness when you needed it. The dad, super heavy the whole film. He's like anchoring this thing as the most real character in the movie. Tough stuff for dad. But yeah, a lot of fun. Can't wait to see more Xolo. I'm sure we'll get more Blue Beetle in the DCU as it grows. Let's talk about the directing of this film. Directed by Angel Manuel Soto.
Angel.
Huh?
Angel.
Angel, maybe Angel. Yeah. I apologize. Evan said got some notes.
Oh, I'll save that for later. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like
he one of the things the director talked about was the choice for like Palmyra City kind of being like Miami-esque instead of El Paso. That was made before he came into the movie. I guess when he came in, like that decision had already been made. Like, it's taking place in Palmyra City. Deal with it. And he did. But yeah, I think a lot of fun was had by the director here. Again, it's a superhero movie. I've already seen headlines talking about this movie mentioning superhero fatigue in the headline, which I think is like this weird thing that's not real and is used by the press as like a sort of parlance for how we talk about movies in general, because we have so many superhero movies now. And I think coming in as a director and having to take a origin story superhero film and like put something fresh into it, I think he found good moments to do that. Like especially like the color, which I mentioned before, like the fun color palette of this movie. I think it was a great choice. And brought a lot of life and like energy to it. It's mostly during the day, a lot of the stuff, which is nice.
Yeah,
you can actually see what's going on. I don't know. Anyone else have some thoughts on the directing?
I've watched some interviews with him, and he's a really smart, thoughtful dude, and I think really like has his heart in the right place. I guess he went in pitching a Bane origin story. And they're like, no, but...
Absolutely not, but...
And I think that it sounds like he really fought for the family story and kind of like giving them heroic moments. That seemed to be a thing that he really cared a lot about, is like making sure that it wasn't just about Blue Beetle, but that like the family got to be heroes, as well. I think that all that's really cool. And again, all the kind of like thoughtful commentary stuff I think is really neat and well appreciated. So I thought he did a great job. And when you consider that this is a lower budget movie, and I guess they had 57 days to shoot it.
Holy cow!
That's a feat. That's a feat.
I thought he juggled a lot. I thought we talked about it before with the acting, but with drama and comedy, directing very different styles on set. And I also feel like he had to use familiar tropes at times, but also reinvent the wheel at times and make it look different while also familiar. And, you've got a big cast. I was really impressed at his ability to add texture to things that could have felt dry. Like there was a lot of moments that could have been lesser without like the right directing behind it. So I was impressed overall.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think there's this one scene though, or there's this one cut, I guess, that really sticks out to me. It's when they're trying to resuscitate the dad. There's a shot of the rest of the family watching them do it, and they're not in the near the ambulance. It's totally to the side, and it's just like a locked off solid shot of George Lopez, the grandma and the sister all standing next to each other, and then they all start crying, and it's just really weird. It felt like really like staged in like a bad way, and coming off the heels of, again, a moment that I've already said it really affected me, and I was just like, such an odd choice to do that. I don't know. I mean, that one moment is obviously not to say that the whole movie, wasn't like well directed, especially like, balancing the kind of like action between like live action and that transition to CGI like we talked about earlier. But yeah, I don't know. That one scene sticks out to me in a big way. And also too, I really want to shout out Joshua Rivera, who wrote a review for Polygon, talking about this film and the burdens of film and representation. I think an interesting quote here is about the movie: it should succeed or fail as a superhero movie, one that is no more or less important than a Batman film, but with like Latino texture. And so I think it's really kind of important to note that, like, yes, like representation does matter, and this is it's great to bring more faces on screen, but it's also hard to like have this movie. It's also a lot of pressure for this movie to also like authentically showcase, culture and heritage, and also like, does it have to be this kind of like deep dive into that as well? It's also like a superhero, like that's why I love the quote so much, a superhero movie with Latino texture. And I think that the movie does, in my opinion, kind of succeed in doing that with not being like super heavy-handed in any certain way. I think a lot about the film that just came out, Shortcomings, that Randall Park directed, where he did an interview and he was saying that like a lot of these movies right now, we're seeing a lot of Asian-led casts, and all these movies, these mainstream movies, have to have a dumpling making scene. And I love making dumplings with my parents as much as the next person, but it's also not necessary, And I'm glad that the movie didn't, in my opinion, I'm not Latino, but in my opinion, didn't dive too far into doing that. I think it was like the right blend of action and comedy and representation, and yeah. It's good. Yeah. Except for that one
scene. One scene's really,
yeah.
See you wait.
It really is. Yeah.
So you're a 0 for the drink.
Yeah,
Just a
zero.
0.
That one scene would have been a 5 for him.
The one thing that stuck out to me was when Jenny is sneaking into the lab to steal the scarab, and she bumps into Dela Cruz and steals his ID badge, and then buzzes it to get in. Gets the scarab, puts it in the big belly box, and is out. And then we cut back to him coming back into the lab to sit down and eat his hamburger. And I was like, how did he get in? Didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
How did he get back into the lab?
Someone held the door open for him.
Yeah. He was like, oh,
It was an intern in the
okay, well, then you answered that for me.
Yeah, there's problem solved.
You answered that for me.
Listen,
There's flaws.
not the tightest security in this lab.
There was like
Holding
this
three
destructive
times. They were like,
aliens.
let's just check.
Sure.
Yeah, when they break back in later, and he's broadcasting the signal, and there's like 5 guys in the security room watching it, and then no other security in the building. I was like, well, what happened?
And they all just call and like stand around like there's nothing we can do.
And then we could do. And then when he came back later, before that, and he picks her up or whatever, and there's like dudes with guns chasing. I was like, what was happening while we were gone? Why wasn't that?
Where'd those guys go?
Where'd those guys go? Firing into the street at other cars and traffic. Fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, a big challenge to take on a superhero movie. Shoot it in 57 days.
Yeah, I think so.
insane.
Yeah. I mean, it shot last year, right?
Wow.
And like there's so many Marvel projects
Right.
and DC, and mostly Marvel projects that are just like held up that were shot like years ago at this point, like last year, 2 years ago. It's crazy.
I did also love the choice of when, and maybe this is more of a writing thing, but like when he first puts on the suit and he's on his test flight and he's gone, and the family's like fixing up the house, and someone's even like, "Shouldn't we go look for him or something?"
Oh yeah.
It'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
Be fine. I did appreciate that. That's a real reality. Your family just being like, someone will find him.
Whatever.
It will be okay. Shall we give our scores for the directing?
Yeah.
I'll go first, especially with your little tidbit. I'll give it a 4 for directing. I think putting this together really quick, and if this had been just on streaming, I would have been very impressed.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it certainly did. It belonged in a movie theater, and I'm glad it did because I think it looks great. I'll give it a 4 for directing. What about you, Jordan?
Yeah, 4 feels good. I kind of wonder what it would be with a little more budget and a little more time. But yeah, it was a ton of fun as is. So 4 feels good. 4 feels good.
4 for me that allocated a budget to look bigger and more expensive than other films that were bigger and more expensive and juggled that cast, juggled the tones. 4 for me.
Yeah. 4 for me. I won't dock it a half point for that one.
Come on, dock it for that shot. They could have cut it.
Tempted, but
Maybe that was the best shot they had.
I think it was, or it's a reshoot, like straight up.
Ooh,
like,
We didn't have a reaction to the family. Let's put him in.
yeah, we only were as in the mom.
Film in the volume. Just put it in the
Maybe
back.
COVID. Maybe there's some COVID. Somebody was out and they needed to shoot around.
There was like
them.
a shot where like during the test fight, I think he zooms down the street and there's like one dude walking down the street. I was like, this city's too busy to have one dude walking down the street in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Unless it was downtown on a Saturday or something, and it was like, this is the financial district, so it's not very busy on a Saturday. That shot to me, I was like, why is there only one dude on
Why
this
is no one in the
street?
city?
Where's everyone in Palmyra City? Okay. I believe this is our final category.
Yeah.
The music, the sound, the score. How does everyone feel about it? Can anyone hum the Blue Beetle theme right now? Didn't stick with you. It didn't stick with you. It's okay.
Blue Beetle.
Hard to go.
The music was by the Haxan Cloak and Bobby Krillick.
Oh, his name is Bobby Krillick, but he goes by the Haxan Cloak.
He goes
Yeah,
by the
but for this movie, he went by Bobby Krillick.
Oh, he didn't go.
Which I don't know
Man,
what
the
that
Haxan
says.
Cloak is very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bobby, if you're out there, stick with the
Haxan
Haxan Cloak. Rules.
And he also
Right,
did Midsommar?
Yeah, a weird kind of like moving together. Of
Man,
deep-
I want more
beautiful
Midsommar
puzzle.
in this movie, dude.
Yeah. Maybe the production designer. I don't know. Maybe I missed some other ones, but
Jordan and I were talking about this earlier, but I love all the like songs but the Spanish language version of
Yes.
it was
Yeah,
very
yeah.
fun. I was very mad when it said Motley Crue and went play. I was like, I hope this is in Spanish, and it wasn't, and that disappointed me a little bit. But I guess it makes sense that Ted Cord wouldn't have the Spanish version of
Yeah.
Which Motley Crue song was it? What's
Look, Kickstart My Heart.
Kickstart My Heart?
Kickstart My Heart is overused as a needle drop.
is.
yeah.
But well
Every time it comes on in a movie, I get fucking pumped.
Yeah, but how often does it end with a man getting
stabbed by a beetle
a
machine.
giant beetle
Or
machine?
does it follow a man who died of a heart attack who didn't kickstart his heart? That was my first thought. I was like, are they doing the song? They are. All right. I was like, you're literally like following a heart
That's true.
attack.
That's true. I didn't even think about
If
that.
Ted had been there to kickstart his heart, things might be different.
And I have listen, I complained about this the last time I was on the break room. I always
Hit 'em.
don't I always get a little ruffled when there's a needle drop that just seems random. And I like it when they seem like they're part of the story. That Kickstart My Heart one,
It's diegetic. They're hearing it in the
that is
machine.
what
That
Ted
works.
Cord, 80s guy,
Yeah.
would have been listening to. And I did love the score, the Haxan Cloak.
The Haxan
Jeez Louise,
Cloak.
it got me
They're
pumped.
really good. Like under the fight scenes, great score. Under it was a good pumping kind of score. And there were a lot of songs that I culturally don't recognize that I'm sure are like very meaningful to tons of people. I think we're probably well placed in this film.
I wish the Blue Beetle moment with Motley was also reflected with like him turning on music and like I would have loved a Cypress Hill with something he liked.
That would have been
like
fun.
I would have really enjoyed
Right.
if he's like, all right, let's fight, and like he turned on music in the symbiote. Like that would have been fun for me.
Yeah.
But other than that, like
Grandma was definitely listening to something hot when she
she
was
was having
sewing.
time.
I was like, this is some modern music. I was like, is this Bad Bunny? What is she listening to?
But yeah, it worked for me slightly. But I don't like that I can't remember his theme.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do overall enjoy, just not as high as maybe the acting and the visuals.
I think theme takes a long time. Like that was a knock on the MCU for a while.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like there's no everyone knows the Harry Potter music or the Batman music, but no one knows the Avengers music or Captain America music, but everyone knows it. Like it's much more common. I think, you throw another Blue Beetle movie out there, you get a theme going for Blue Beetle. I don't know like the Flash's theme or anything like that.
The Flash, the
White
theme-
Stripes. There's no Rock on Tours. There's the Rock on Tours.
I think the
That's
Flash's
a
theme
Barbie
is
reference.
Yeah.
I think the Flash's theme is actually police sirens, I believe.
See what you did there. I see what you did.
But yeah,
From their scores.
I mean, I think that, well, and I think like a common thing in movies for a while, but especially now, is like a mix of like retro songs that are like, you know, pop music, songs that play during, you know, fight sequences and stuff. And I think this movie did a great job with it. It was fun, and it definitely fit the theme of the movie. Nothing felt like super out of place. And I was glad there was so much like Spanish language music in the movie. It felt more like real than like being like, oh, I'll just throw in more Motley Crue.
Like, why is this movie all Motley Crue?
It's just so much
Yeah,
Motley
that would be
Crue.
weird.
Scores for the sounds? Score?
I guess I'll give it a 3. I don't
Score,
really.
score?
I can't.
Oh, okay.
When I was like looking up, you know, putting together the script, I was like, I can't remember anything about it. Like, nothing stuck out to me.
I hope the Haxan Cloak's not watching.
I know.
3.5 for me, because
Okay.
even in the moment, I remember thinking like, I wish this theme felt a little more specific to him.
Sure.
But I did like overall the needle drops. They worked, and I did find the fights more exciting because of the score. So between those, so 3.5 for me.
Haxan, Cloak, and Bob Iger watched together.
Oh, they do.
yeah,
They do.
yeah.
I heard Haxan Cloak had 3 hours to score this movie.
Right.
You know, I think this is where I'm giving my 5.
Ooh.
I am giving my 5 for the music.
Whoa.
Can I hum the Blue Beetle theme? No. Do I remember how goddamn pumped I got when it came on? Yes. Will I be turning it on in my car later when I'm sitting in traffic? Hell yeah.
Yes.
I thought the needle drops were great, and I did like the score a lot. So I think this is my 5.
Oh, beautiful. I'll give it a 4 on the score. I liked all the music. It was a lot of fun. Like, a song you recognize, done differently in a new language, that's always fun. I had a great time with that. Yeah, a lot of fun with all that. We're going to tally up our scores here. Some final thoughts, if anyone's have them. Here's my final thought. Something really stuck out to me. I want to know who... Jenny Cord was invented for this movie, as was Victoria Cord. So we're definitely in an Elseworld now. Or if this is main DCU, this is
New
the world they're
characters,
building.
yeah.
I've got to know who Jenny Cord's mom is.
Yeah.
Who was Ted Cord knocking up with to get this daughter?
What you call it? Knocking up with?
Knocking up with to get this daughter, okay? I want to know, because the moment, we're kind of talking about this in the lair, where you see the 3 mannequins.
Yep.
2 of them have costumes on. One of them is missing its suit. Now, based on the post-credit scene, that could be whatever Ted Cord was wearing as he goes missing. I kind of read it as a weird Ant-Man and Wasp moment where, like, was Mom some sort of hero and she's gone? And either because they don't ever talk about her if she's dead or what happened. Like,
No, they say she dies.
oh, did they say?
They say she dies. That was my mom's last painting. She died when I was 6.
Oh, right.
I love that Mom's painting style is so abstract, where you don't have to cast anyone.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Mom kind of
that
painted
guy.
in pixels.
Yeah, she
But-
thought this was his
But yeah,
face.
if that missing suit was like belonged to her or something, because he was developing tech for the daughter, you know, I'm sure Mom was involved at some point.
Yeah.
Like if that was like the longing look she gave to that mannequin kind of like left a lot of questions in my mind.
Yeah, and I was surprised I didn't pay that one off. I mean, it could be as simple as like that is just the last suit he wore when he went out, but like the pillow thing still doesn't really make sense. And then that's where the mom thing might make sense, where it's like a pregnancy or something.
Oh, a pregnant? Like, yeah.
The pillow to me that is the suit he was wearing in his old age.
Yeah.
Where you get a
he's
little
getting
bit more of a guy.
You don't want to buy a fat mannequin because like you could slim back down and use the regular mannequin.
Sure.
I did like that there was a little like heft to the waist on all of them. That was like, he's not a superhero fit. He's Ted Cord.
Yeah.
I also think that we might see, and this is what I hope for, my pipe dream, my tinfoil hat is Booster Gold, the character, is a great commentary on superhero culture. I think it's going to be the Deadpool for the DC universe they wanted Vigilante to be, because he's basically going to be a TikToker. Like, he's going to be someone that, like, I'm famous for being famous. And I think there's a really good opportunity there to have maybe an 80s Booster Gold come into the modern day instead of it being a deep future. And then I would have that Blue Beetle be the one that teams up with Booster Gold, not Xolo. So I would have, like, a Jason Sudeikis and then a Booster Gold that team up together on the Booster Gold show. And that would be how I'd reintroduce. And that way you don't have to cast until Booster. And that way you tie in Blue Beetle in a not so direct way. You literally just have the person that's trapped team up with Booster Gold traveling through time, and then he comes back later, and then you loop it all in.
They did a recent Booster Beetle comic where they were like social media stars because they live streamed everything. Maybe they're setting up that
I think
idea.
that's what's happening.
I was going to ask that question if you would like a booster from the future, but I love the idea in a present day where there's so much tech and it's basically the future.
Yeah.
You know, techno future. Yeah, having someone from the past come here and be like, "Oh, I'm a hero now," or whatever. No one knows me.
Or
yet.
if people want the tech to be from the present, go to the 80s to get Ted Cord. Or it can be today's technology would seem futuristic to people in the 80s. Then you'd have the fun nostalgia.
Yeah, I loved like Ted Cord's watch.
Yeah.
With the you know, the slow pixelated animations and stuff. Like that was fun.
Wait, so do you think he's stuck in time or do you think he's stuck in space?
I think he's stuck in time.
Okay.
And I think Booster helps him. Or he's stuck because of Booster.
Oh.
One or the other. And I think that the next time we see a Blue Beetle isn't Xolo, it's on the Blue Beetle show. And then you can have, on the Booster Gold show, but then you can have our Blue Beetle maybe show up in a big... the way the Superman looks is they're going to have one scene with a league, maybe not the Justice League, but a team. And I could see Xolo showing up there for a line or two to show like, hey, this is the same universe. But I think the next time we see a Blue Beetle might be Booster Gold.
Oh, interesting. And do you think that's Jason Sudeikis at the end?
I do, and I think I want him to be the character on the
It's
show.
good casting. It's good casting.
I really want it.
Yeah.
He would be a good Ted Cord. Another thing I was wondering about, and would love to hear your thoughts on, the very beginning of the movie starts with them finding the scarab, right? Mm-hmm. It's in this giant sphere of concrete or something like that. They say a line that like it could be another decoy, and also like they've been looking for like 15 years or something like that. So do you take it to be that Ted Cord hides the scarab, mainly from his sister, I guess. He knows that she's looking for it. He creates these giant concrete spheres or whatever, hides them around the world. They have to dig them up. And then goes missing? Is that
my implication? That's why I think time, not
series
space,
of events?
Because I think that has to do with like him hiding it throughout, like, he's got this thing, he can't bring it with him or whatever reason. And that's why I think coming back in Booster Gold, as played by Billy Magnuson, would be the move. I want Billy Magnuson's Booster Gold.
The time thing makes sense because we were talking about this earlier. The opening credits, there's all these lists of dig sites.
Right.
And some of it is like ancient temples and stuff like that. So maybe,
because they bring up Dan Garrett in the beginning, who was in the comics is the first Blue Beetle, because Ted Cord never bonded with Ted Cord. He just kind of like took the name and developed the tech. But it did insinuate, if I'm remembering the opening things, that because in the comics Dan and Ted talk, like Dan is Ted's like mentor or whatever. They like work together. Do you think they talked in this timeline, or was just like were they friends or they were associates?
I think there's a line where it's like they say the same thing. It's like he was Dan was the student of, or Ted was the student of Dan.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how he knew that Dan bonded with the scarab, and he was studying how to either unlock it or like have it disattached from somebody.
Right. Okay.
But they didn't really dive into that as much. But I didn't like that they referenced all three. That they were like, there is a, this character is not super well known to the larger public, but there is like a legacy.
Yeah.
It also makes it so DCU has established heroes.
Right.
Yeah,
which I really like.
If James Gunn's plan is to be like, we're entering in media res rather than Iron Man's the first and now it's cracking open. Like, no, this has all been going on, and I like Superman's just new. Like
Superman
that's it.
is, and also not that new. We know it's on the Superman origin story. So
he's
I
like
like that.
he's been
and like a year, 1 year, two, and then
yeah.
also Batman being Damian Wayne. Like there's a beautiful opportunity to just be like, and the already in progress DC universe.
Yeah. Love it. Okay, our final score for Blue Beetle is 78.5. What a good temperature. What a good temperature, folks.
Yeah.
I think
Bring
overall,
a light jacket.
Bring a light jacket
to Blue Beetle.
Overall, good time. Comes in just under 2 hours, I believe.
Yeah.
Pretty jaunty origin story, but I think a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And as we look at the waning days of a DC EU of once
as the sun sets on a Snyderverse.
And in 3 years we'll get Aquaman 2 finally released in theaters. I would love to see more Blue Beetle in the DCU going forward. I think we will. I
think so.
I think he definitely has a place. That's it for us today. Make sure to give us a follow right here on Twitch and subscribe to the Breakroom channel on YouTube, where you can catch cutdowns and replays of all of our streams, as well as other exclusive content. Have a great weekend, folks. Latest get is. We'll catch you next time. Adios. Goodbye.